evening and welcome to Monaz Media Network and our Tuesday night recap of what are we? Oh, we're recapping Sunday's sermon. That's what we're doing.
Yes, we are a different preacher today. Pastor Mike was out hunting, so that today Sunday. Whatever.
Well, he's probably might still be out
he
hunting.
probably is.
Anyway, welcome, and I'm Sandy. I'm usually here on Tuesdays, but a lot of times I'm in the booth and not in front of the camera. But tonight I'm here.
Same for me.
And yes, welcome.
Every time I've been here for the live stream, it's been over there in the little room. So.
Well, see, we had asked you to help produce these, and you didn't know that when I asked you to do that you were always a backup plan.
That included included other duties.
Yeah. I figured that, hey, if it's Chris, if I said please, he'll say yes. Anyway, I'm excited to have you with me tonight.
Yeah, didn't take too many notes, but I listened back to it again today in between my bus routes, and I was like, okay, well, I have an idea, but
Well, it was a really good message, and it was brought to us by Pastor Scott Delbridge, and I really enjoy listening to him. I didn't take very many notes either. But then I'm up in the booth trying to follow him, with the notes and slides and everything.
So it should just be ingrained in your brain, right? I mean, you're
Well,
up there clicking through them all anyway.
I was also running the switcher for the live stream too, so it was like I was multitasking and
minor details,
Yeah, so my brain was a little fried by the time I left, but it was really good. But it was on managing overwhelming, and actually it's kind of an appropriate topic considering that the original person that I had scheduled couldn't make it. And then my first backup choice couldn't make it. And then you were drafted. And I'm fighting a cold. And when I talk, I start to cough. So it may be a short recap tonight, depending on.
That's fine. Starting off, first one I'm in here, if it's a little short, that's fine. I don't mind.
Well, I look at it this way. I'd rather have us, even if we have to cut it short, if my voice gives out, than to not have one at all.
Yeah.
It's
fun to come out here and, even usually being in there, it's just kind of fun to get on and see what people are doing. I mean, most people kind of listen while they're doing other stuff. I know I usually do. If I'm not here, I'm usually, it's going on in the background. I'm doing 3 other things, But it's fun.
And Ms. Jean was even here before we were live waiting for us. So, yes. So, well, let's go into announcements on what's coming up. This Thursday, which will be day after tomorrow.
Yes.
will be the ladies' night. And they're going to be sharing recipes. So, come prepared to bring a recipe. And Brittany Klossner is going to be bringing the message, and I am hoping that I can remember to get down here Thursday night, because I'd really like to make it down. I haven't yet, because by the time Thursdays come, my brain, by Thursday evening, my brain's usually,
Brain's at capacity.
Yeah, it's
for the
gone.
week.
And then on Saturday, it's the second Saturday of the month, so that's going to be the men's firewood. Well, excuse me. It's put on with the men's ministry, but it's not just for men. Women, young, kids, as you wouldn't want a toddler out there, because there's a lot of chainsaws and, big boys with expensive
safety concern kind of things,
But if you've got, kids that are old enough to learn, how to pick up sticks, it's a great time to teach them how to serve.
Yeah.
Because you can do it as a family, and
it's not terribly difficult. I mean, it's labor, but it's not like.
And you can, if your kids are young, you can come for an hour, and if they get tired and you need to leave, that's okay. But it's a place to start.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find it fun. I haven't made it to the last couple. I've always had other things going, but whenever I can make it, I'm like, I mean, I grew up doing it, so it's like, throwing firewood around is kind of fun every once in a while, as long as I don't have to do it, right? It's one of those things. As long as I don't have to do it, it's fun.
My dad, after he retired from work, and after he'd had a quadruple bypass heart surgery, that's what he did for money. He went out and cut firewood, split it, and my mom could throw firewood and stack firewood faster than anybody else I'd seen. I could never keep up with her.
Yeah.
Okay, next announcement. In August of 2025, I think it is August, and if I'm wrong, I apologize. So. We are going to be doing a mission trip to Guatemala. I do not have a lot of details on it, but there's going to be an informational meeting. So if you want to go, if you're thinking about going but you don't know if you want to go or not, if you don't want to go but want to help, or if you just want to get more information so that you can encourage others to go, come to the meeting. That'll be Sunday right after church. It doesn't sound like it's going to be a really long meeting, but anyway, everybody is welcome.
Yeah, I think it's scheduled for an hour and a half or something. It's like 12:30 to 2 or 12:30 to 1:30, I think, is what it's scheduled for. Yeah. So I'm sure it's not going to be...
Yeah, probably not.
General information kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And then the end of November, we're going to have the Monez Market. They're going to have vendors and all sorts of stuff going on. That'll be down in the fellowship hall and the gym. And that'll be on November 30th.
That's a Saturday, correct?
That is a Saturday. So if you need to do your Christmas shopping, great time.
There you go.
Do your Christmas shopping. If you don't have enough Christmas decorations, and we all need more Christmas decorations. And then our last announcement.
Yes.
There's a minor thing coming up in December. It's called, we call it Hanging of the Greens because originally the program was, when they decorated and stuff. And the programs themselves have transformed into drama, dance, theatrical presentations. Yeah. But for simplicity's sake, we still call it Hanging of the Greens because we like to call it HOG.
It's short and sweet, it gets right to the point. Everybody knows what it is.
But, being on the tech end of things, I've been seeing some of the rehearsals and stuff, and, I haven't been to one that I didn't like.
Yeah.
But for some reason, this year's is just, I'm liking it for some reason more than some of the prior years. And it's not that the prior years are bad because they weren't. Yeah. I really like the prior years, but I really like, the script this year.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's on time, and maybe I'm getting old, and maybe it just kind of fits.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it fits with, for me, it fits personally, but I think it fits even with all the craziness going on in the world where it's like, well, where is God at? Sometimes it feels like, well, where is God? And it's like the whole point of this performance. Well, if you saw the slide, it said, never early, never late, on time God. It's about how God he's not late and he's not early. And so, when the times when it feels like he's just not there, well, he's there. Maybe he's just not as present in your life as you would like him to be. And so it feels like he's not there, but
when that happens, how much of it is because he's not there for us versus we aren't in a right relationship to really see that he is there.
If we're not investing of ourselves into our walk with him, then of course it's going to feel like he's far away.
And actually that kind of segues into
it does.
Pastor Scott's sermon.
It actually does.
His sermon was on um, Managine
Yes.
Overwhelming.
Yes.
And, when I read that title, I thought, okay, that's a weird title because
Mhm.
I get his sermon notes beforehand so
Oh,
I can
yeah.
get the computer ready.
Yep.
And I wish I could say that, when I do this on a weekly basis, that I go through those sermon notes and I read all of the scriptures and I read all of the comments and stuff, so that I'm really, really prepared. Usually I just slap them in the computer, um, and, you know, I just copy and paste the scriptures and I don't read them. I should. Maybe I should start doing that. But but it's he was taking it out of First Samuel,
Yes.
chapter 17, and basically he was taking bits and pieces from the whole chapter, and it's 58 verses. So let's not read the whole thing tonight.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe we do, and that's all. No, I'm just kidding. It's all there. No.
That's true. That's true.
No, he was pulling some really good points out of that, though. Like I was telling you before we start, like I listened back to it today because I have other responsibilities I do during church as well as on worship team, and then I usually will watch one of the exits or something, help out the security team. And so I'm like, I'm listening, but I'm not always able to pay as much attention as I would like to. So I'm like, man, there's more there than I remembered hearing on Sunday. But it's yeah. First Samuel 17 is about the story of Goliath, David and Goliath.
David and who?
Yeah, David and yeah. It's the first point was about not naming the Goliath, because David wouldn't have necessarily even known who this guy is. It's just like, he hears the report and he's reporting back to his dad about his brothers, and they're all like, "There's this big dude that's challenging the nation, and we're at a standstill, and what's going on here?" David's like, "Well, we've got God. What are we doing here?
That's
Why are we
right.
sitting here on our hands when we can be doing stuff?"
You know, so let me ask you this. What do you think was the difference? Because David had one attitude about Goliath, and his brothers had a different attitude about Goliath. Why?
I think it was because David had, it's pretty apparent in the Psalms and stuff that he wrote, which most of those would have come later, but he spent so much time with God that he's just like, it's not even a thought in his mind. He's like, we've been told this land is ours.
Mhm.
We've been told that area that you're fighting over is ours. Why are we even concerned about these enemies that are coming? I don't care if he's 9 feet tall. I don't care if he's 20 feet tall. God said the land is ours. We can go get it. He, there's the stories of him, killing the bear and the lion. And it's like, some people were, there's ideas that he was a young teenager, during this time period in First Samuel. And it's like, anywhere from, I think, 13 to like 17 years old, maybe. And I'm like, a teenager out there, and he's like, well, yeah, a lion was coming after the sheep, so I killed it. I don't know if maybe that was just daily life for them then, but
Well, it probably was because, they didn't spend their first,
right.
18 years going to public school.
Yeah.
They spent their
That's
first
true.
18 years, being
Learning how to work.
taught and learning and learning how to survive.
Yeah.
But you're right. David knew that Goliath was an obstacle, but he kept his eyes on God, where his brothers were keeping their eyes on Goliath.
Yeah. They're seeing the obstacle in front of them rather than the God that's behind them.
That's right. That's right. So that's, and when you keep your eyes focused strictly on your obstacle, on your Goliath, whatever that is, you can't when you're focused on just that and not your relationship with God, you're relying on yourself to get through, over, or around that obstacle.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying that, when you keep your eyes on God, that you're not going to have those obstacles.
Oh, yeah. No, he doesn't promise us that.
No, believe me, I know. But when you keep your eyes on him, you can see the path that he's giving you, or the tools that he has given you, or the support from somebody else that he is giving you, so that you can go over, around, through, your obstacles, your Goliaths.
Yeah. Well, I really like the point that he made too, down there a little bit in his notes about, the logical thing would have been for Saul to go take care of it. He was, when he was crowned king, it mentions, I forget what chapter that is in Second Samuel, wherever it is, that he was crowned king. He was a head and shoulder above everybody around him. And he's like, maybe that was 6 foot, maybe the guys were tended to be a little shorter then. Maybe that was 6'6", who knows? But, he was, whatever the case, he was, everybody else is looking at his chest. And the logical thing would have been for him to go into battle because, you're champion for our champion kind of a thing. And so the logical thing then too was, well, Saul's king, so we can't send him into battle. Okay, well, David's willing to do it. Well, then Saul's like, well, hey, let me give you some armor. And, I've had the thought before, but it's just funny how it brought it up, how Pastor Scott brought it up again this time, where it's like, there was no way that armor was going to fit him. I mean, you think about like my brother Aaron, he's 6'3.5" ish, and it's like, if you have armor built for him and then you're like, hey, Josh Nichols, we need you to go fight in a battle, and the only armor we have available is Aaron's. Can you do that? There's no way it was gonna fit for the, and he's not used to it. He hasn't trained in an army kind of a thing.
And you have to, any type of armor or special, equipment, you have to get used to it because, when our oldest son graduated basic training, he came home, and he had his flak vest with him.
Oh yeah.
And he put it on me. I was able to stand and walk, but not for very far and not for very long, And so I can understand why I could not have moved quickly. Yeah. There was just no way.
Yeah.
But you have to, God is going to provide you with the tools that meet your capabilities, your abilities.
Yeah.
To meet your need. If you're out in the woods and, you have to cross, a river, he's not going to, provide you, probably a sailboat because it wouldn't work. But,
right.
He might lead you to a bridge.
Yeah.
Or a log that is crossed so that but he's...
Yeah. That made me think of, sometimes when we're talking to people about our problems and they can point out something, especially people that know you really well, they can point out something that's come into your life or something that left your life that was like, oh, well, that was that tool that you've been looking for, but you've been looking for this tool and God gave you this tool, which is well within your ability to use. You just didn't think that's what it was for. Armor makes sense, but not if you're not used to it, not if you can't move in it.
And you have to know your own capabilities, your own abilities. Because if, I am short, one of my abilities
Really?
is not, yeah, just a little bit, is not reaching things on a high shelf. You know, if I have to get something off of a high shelf, I have two options. I find a tool like a ladder or a stool,
Mm-hmm.
or I ask somebody else to do it
Yeah.
for me. You know, now let's pick on your brother again, Aaron. Now, he doesn't have to ask for help, and probably very seldom in the house
Mm-hmm.
ever has to use a ladder or step stool, because he could probably reach the ceiling with
Yeah.
his hand.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. That was just something that, as I'm re-listening to it, I'm like, oh yeah, he had all the right tools
mhm.
at his disposal. Saul's like, here's all my tools for you to use, and David's like,
But the right
yeah,
tools,
but I'm gonna pick my 5 stones,
right?
and that's the tools that I
But
need.
but the right tools that Saul had
Yeah.
were the tools that were given to Saul,
Mm.
not the tools that were given to
Yeah.
David. You know, and I also found it interesting that, you know, you've got the two teams, the two camps, you know, the two opponents, you know, on one on each hillside, you know, with this valley in between.
Mhm.
And they were there for 40 days and 40 nights.
Yeah.
Have we ever heard of that time period before?
A number of times, yes.
You know, I checked, and I can't tell you where they're all mentioned.
Mhm.
But 40 days and 40 nights are mentioned 24 times in the Bible.
Interesting. I was planning to look that up and see. I totally forgot to. Then I know I remember doing a study on numbers in the Bible and how important. Sometimes the numbers are literal. Like Jesus was dead for 3 days, but sometimes there also is a connotation that comes because of the text and because of the time period it was written and all that kind of stuff. Like the number 3 in the Bible is often used for completeness or totality of something. It's
Father,
just interesting.
Son,
Yes,
and
exactly.
Holy Spirit.
I mean, there's the 3 in 1. Jesus was dead for 3 days and rose again.
Mhm.
There's all kinds of these instances of 3 and 7 and 2 is the pair. There was 2 animals of each of the clean ones that came on, and it's just yeah, or was it unclean? Now I'm second guessing myself. Anyway. But yeah, I was planning to look that up and I forgot to. But yeah, that's a good shout there with the 24 times in the Bible, that 40 days and 40 nights. And it's always something important. Noah's flood, he was stuck in the ark 40 days and 40 nights before the water receded. They were in the wilderness for 40 years. And it was a little different, but it's another
But
40.
Another 40.
And I mean, yeah, it's
And they
it's
didn't learn
very-
anything during the.
They didn't. They had to spend another. So, oh man, yeah.
But the thing that we have to remember is that we all have our Goliaths, that come at various stages in our lives and in various ways. And depending on, our, our relationship with Christ, our relationship with our families, our our mental attitudes, our physical, condition, those, if every time a Goliath came, you were at your peak,
Yeah.
then even the biggest Goliath, you would know that it's, I can get through this. But there are times in our lives, and we all go through this, that, we might have been, sick. So, we're physically drained, mentally exhausted, and so sometimes even the small Goliaths at those stages in our lives can seem like humongous,
Yeah.
Obstacles for us to overcome. And that's one thing that we have keep in mind as Christians when we see somebody struggling with something.
Mm.
We have to be careful not to judge how big their Goliath is,
Yeah.
because when we look at somebody else's Goliath, we might think, oh, well, that's no biggie. You just do this, and it's, you're done.
Yeah.
But to them, it might be more than they think they can handle without help,
Yeah.
So we've got to remember that we have to support each other, and we can't judge how difficult a situation is for somebody else, because even if we've been in a similar situation, we don't know what their condition
We're
is.
a completely different person.
Really?
Usually. I mean, one of my favorite topics I've ever heard preached on numerous times is perspective. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, we know God has said he's never going to allow anything that we can't handle with him. It doesn't say that we can't handle, it says that we can't handle with him. And every time I hear it preached, it's like, well, you see Goliath, and he's, a good 3 feet taller than 3.5 feet taller than I am, over. And, but then there's, from God's perspective, he can hold the entire universe in the span of his hand.
Yeah.
And it's like, so from that perspective, you don't even see Goliath. You don't even see yourself. You don't even see the earth. If you're looking at the entire universe, you don't even see the Milky Way galaxy. Mm-hmm. It's so and so it's just very interesting where it's like, okay, this thing is, it's big, to me it's huge, but God promised that it's not going to be more than me and him can handle together. And sometimes that looks like just praying, fasting, getting into his word. Sometimes that looks like talking to friends, calling people up, asking for advice. Sometimes that can be any number of different ways to solve the problem, but it's never too much for us and God to handle. And Goliath.
And sometimes the most important thing that we can do for somebody else that is going, through a Goliathism. You like that word? Goliathism.
There you go. I like that. I have to remember that.
Yeah, I like making up words. When somebody is going through a Goliathism, one of the most important things that we can do is just be there to listen. Sometimes, I know there are times I get frustrated with my work situation sometimes because, it used to be we were in office, if you'd get kind of like a little frazzled, you could go out, take 5 minutes, talk to one of your coworkers, and, just kind of get your head back in the game, so to speak, and go off and work. Well, when you work from home, and all you're doing is talking to your computer, and, the computer doesn't always answer back the way it should.
Has a mind of its own occasionally.
So sometimes, I find myself just getting...
yeah.
And all it takes is, there's a couple people I can call, and just say, okay, I just need to vent, and so they'll just go, and I'll say, thank you for listening.
Yeah.
And I'm fine.
Yeah.
It's amazing what just having somebody to listen. And we forget that God is always there, ready to listen.
Yeah.
All we have to do is remember that, he's hearing us anyway.
Yeah.
All we have to do is remember to include him so that he knows that he's welcome into that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've heard it said before too, people I've heard for years, don't get angry, don't allow anger, especially anger is the main one you hear about.
Mm-hmm.
But it was very interesting hearing from a counselor that I had when I was in West Virginia, one of my counselor friends. He was like, "Are you concerned about hurting God's feelings? Like why do you hold back from venting
Mm-hmm.
in your prayers? Like God is there to listen."
I've
And
told him I'm mad at him a few times.
yeah, he can handle your anger.
Mhm.
He's God.
And usually when I do, by the time I'm through explaining my point of view, it starts to dawn on me how absurd my point of view is. But he listens, and
Yeah.
it's like, it's okay.
Yeah.
And once it's out, it's,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he already knows.
Yeah.
It's not like we're hiding it from
He
him.
knows better than you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, coming back to Goliath, it's like, sometimes equating Goliath to problems. I love problem solving. My brain thrives on problem solving. And but sometimes my counselor friends in West Virginia, they love when they had meetings with me, because they said all they have to do is sit there and occasionally throw a question at me, and I pretty much sort myself out. 'Cause, it's just realigning that perspective, getting your perspective back into order. And it's like, if I can get out of this brain space where my problem is right here and that's all I can see. Well, if you go to the back side, there's an opening back here.
Yeah.
There's this whole thing in front of me that I'm looking at, but if I just come around to the other side, there's an easy way around it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like walking out to your car, trying to open the driver's side door, realizing it's locked, and your keys are in the car. And you try the Slim Jim. That doesn't work. Try this, try that. And then you walk around to the other side and realize that the passenger's door is already unlocked.
Yeah. It's just interesting. Like the story of Goliath, David and Goliath. It's one that, as a 6-year-old, I'm fascinated by. Of course, everybody I knew, every little boy I knew was 6 years old at one point that heard this stuff. But it's like, then the more I've grown up around it and heard it from different ideas and different perspectives, and even some I didn't really, I was like, I don't know about that one. But, it's like, he mentioned that, the 5 smooth stones. It's like, well, why 5? Like, he's out in the field. He's, the Bible kind of alludes that he just practices, as he's watching the sheep. Oh, there's a tree there. It was pretty obvious that, well, there was a lion that came and he just kind of dispatched of it. Oh, there's a bear. A bear came after his sheep, and he just, I mean, he's just like, well, it's another obstacle. And he was like, why the 5 stones? Well, potentially, he figures there's going to be more fighting he has to do.
Well, and it's like, it's like well, let's pick on Pastor Mike. Okay? He's not
Might
here.
as well bring him in.
We might as well. Now, I'm sure that when he's been out hunting, he's probably had his rifle with him. And I'm sure that he probably had more than one shell.
Yeah. Most hunters I know do.
And because he is prepared.
Yeah.
I mean, if it only takes one, then he's only going to use one.
Yeah.
But he's prepared in case he needs another one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just speaking of perspective, and it's interesting that, when he said that, it kind of got my wheels turning. I'm like, yeah, he had 5 stones, but for some reason it was pretty clear to him that he's just like, yep, there's not going to be a trial and error kind of a thing here. It's going to be, he somehow knew the weak points of the armor. He knew to aim for the forehead. He's like, he started listing off, started listing off the weights and the sizes and how he probably would have had a whole other person to carry his sword for him and a whole other person to carry his shield in front of him. Like, these things are massive and weigh, his spear was like, it said, what, a weaver's beam, and in my head, I'm thinking like the weaver, they have all the the loops up on the top, maybe like a 2x4. That's, that's a big beam. And then a 25-pound head or 20-pound head on there, 30-pound, whatever. Big old head on the thing.
Pick it up.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, even to wield the thing is just ridiculous. But David's like, there is a weak spot. Right there is a weak spot. You just have to know where it is. And the only explanation I could come up with is, God was like, right there's where you need to aim.
That's right.
Make it happen. Like, you're here to lead my people from the back.
And he wasn't relying totally on, he wasn't going into it with a attitude of, I have killed a lion. I have killed a bear. I can do this. Yeah. I can do this. Yeah. He was going with an attitude of, yes, God has allowed me to protect the sheep by killing the lion, by killing the bear. God has helped me do that. God has gotten me through those overwhelming odds. So God will get me through this. So God will make sure that my aim is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't a question in his mind.
Yeah, because he was so connected. So, do you think we should look at some of the comments I have? Yeah, we've been chatting away. I haven't even looked.
It's mostly Chauncey and Miss Jean going back and forth a little bit. But, it's good to see at least those two on. I can't tell if there's more people on there or not, but did have 5. Okay, well, welcome to anybody that was in.
That's right.
If you're still here, great.
And if you're still here. And for those that are still here, Chauncey and Miss Jean, thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
And be sure and put prayer requests in if you need those, and try to get those in ASAP because my voice is starting to lose. So we may not be here much longer, but But go ahead and get those in if you would, please. We would appreciate it muchly. Well, let me ask you this. Since we've got this upcoming mission trip in probably August-ish.
Yeah.
I can say August-ish because that way I'm safe.
It was somewhere around there. I just saw a flyer for it and I forgot the date.
You went one in Hungary.
Yes, I'm wearing the shirt for Budapest.
What kind of Goliath-type obstacles did you have to overcome to do that?
I think the main thing was actually all the preparation for it. Once we were there, it was amazing. At least for me, it was. I felt bad for our team leader because there's some things kind of got thrown onto her plate that she wasn't exactly planning for. But for us, it was like, well, we were the first group in, I think they said 13 or 17 years that they had Americans come and help them out. And so they were all very skeptical and not too sure about this group of 4.
Are these Americans going to do anything? Or are they just going to sit around and
yes, and because that's what happened with the last group that they had.
Oh no,
they were there for the tourism. They were there to have fun, and they helped at the camp. But it was it was very much it felt like they weren't there for the right reasons, and so they're like, oh boy,
they were taking advantage of the
yes
of the mission trip so that they could
And so we show up and we're, leading up to it, the 2 months or so leading up to it, we're in Zoom meetings talking to them about logistics and, figuring out the dates for all the stuff and getting information from them and all kinds of stuff. But beings as we're the first group in however long to go,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't know anybody else who had been there at all.
Mm-hmm.
Not just for this camp we were helping
Right.
at, but I was going to wear my bracelet because I figured we might talk about it, and I forgot. Anyway, it's in my truck. But we just didn't know what to ask.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, the information's here. We're sure if we knew how to, there were just some things where like, well, we're just going to have to figure it out when we get there. And a lot of that was fine. But our poor team leader, we got there and she found out she's leading a group of the helpers. With the way they split it up, it was the helpers for like my group. I was a team leader as well, but I was an assistant team leader. And so me and Ponka, my team leader, were in charge of our group of 7 kids for like a small group session. And like anytime we went to the beach, anytime we were doing group activities, we had to make sure our whole group was there. But then we had 2 helpers that were, they were too old for the camp, but they were too young to be team leaders. But they didn't want to push them out. And so this is the first year that they had introduced that new system. And so that was part of the reason they wanted to expand their team, was because they were like, they didn't know if they had the manpower and all that to accommodate for all these, teenagers who are going to need some extra guidance.
They didn't know if they had enough help to help the helpers.
Yes, that's exactly correct. And so that was why we got brought in, was because they were connected with Harvest Net International, which my church I was going to back there was also connected to. And so they were like, they had connections of connections kind of a thing. Our team leader knew somebody that they knew down in Texas or Florida, who they reached out to this guy over here in Florida and was like, hey, do you know anybody? They kind of put it out there, like, would this be a possibility? And he said, well, yeah, put it out there into our circles. So they put it out to all the churches in the area. And our pastor was like, well, our kids team leader, our kids ministry leader would potentially be interested in that, and so they started having talks that way. And it was a fun experience, though. It was definitely the Goliath of the, I'm trying to think now, the Goliath of the week. Ooh. It was probably, honestly, the spiritual warfare, because there were some things that happened at the camp that we ended up pulling all the staff aside during their 2-hour or hour-and-a-half break, that they all went to their rooms. All the staff pulled aside and ended up doing some pretty heavy-duty spiritual warfare on behalf of some of the campers. And it was like, we're just observers. It felt like, and after the camp, they're like, it was so great to have you there as like backup. And we're like, we felt like we did nothing, but yet we felt all the pressure that they all felt because we're there as a team. But it was like, they're praying in Hungarian, they're preaching in Hungarian, they're explaining the situation in Hungarian. And we're all like, okay, we had a translator, but there's little things that get lost when you're translating, and so we got the gist of it, and it was pretty heavy, but it was like, okay, so we're here, and we're supposed to support this group of other believers who we can't understand because they're all praying in Hungarian. We know the situation, so we can pray on our own, but it was interesting. It was really fun, though. It was very stretching.
That's a great example of how, the Bible tells us that, we can pray even when we don't know the words to pray.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a perfect example because you didn't have any specifics,
Yeah.
but you could pray for the situation,
Mm-hmm.
and all of the details were filled in,
Yeah.
you know, for you.
Yeah.
And
And then afterward, when they had time, they said, they really went into depth and actually explained all the details of what was going on and stuff. But it was just like, I mean, it's such a crazy feeling. You're like, they're all gearing up for some pretty heavy stuff. Of course, we are too. And it's like, but we're American English, and we're there in Eastern Europe in this, and it's just, yeah, I mean, it was great though. I actually really enjoyed it. I'm not sure that I necessarily had like a huge Goliath moment besides that, where it was, and that, to me, that felt like a small Goliath in a lot of ways, mostly because of the language barrier in the moment. But it was very much like, I went into it with an open mind and an open heart, and it was like, it was hard to leave. I'm like, I'm there for 10 days, and I'm like, I don't know, that return ticket's looking less and less attractive right now. It's just, I got to go back to crazy politics and crazy people and,
and people that schedule you to do things before you even get moved back here.
Hey, that part was, it was fine. I'm used to it. Oh, man. No, but yeah, I mean, the Goliaths that I personally experienced there were more internal, or they were either internal Goliaths or they were Goliaths that I was taking on to back somebody else up.
Well, that just is, but that's a great example of how the our Goliaths that we have encountered and will encounter, come in all shapes, sizes, circumstances. Some of them are ones that, we can see far off, so we know that we have to prepare, and figure out, okay, this is going to happen. How are we going to get from here to here? Because this is going to be something we have to overcome.
Yeah.
But some of them are ones that, basically you stand up and you get, you walk into a wall, and there is a Goliath right there.
Yeah.
That you are blindsided by, either because it is totally unexpected or because you weren't paying attention.
Yeah. Sometimes the surprises are because you had your eyes closed.
Yeah. But but they're all shapes, all sizes. But the answer to the Goliath is all the same. It's turn to God.
Yeah.
And yes, our actions and the solutions are going to be unique to each Goliath. But the way to get to that solution is always the same. So
the ultimate answer is always the same.
That's
whether or not the tools or the whatever
and
is.
The sooner in our Goliath, when we meet our Goliath, the sooner we realize that, I had better get my ducks lined up in a row, and I'd better get my ducks lined up in a row this way first.
Yep.
And then we can go forward.
Yeah.
The sooner we can remember, the sooner we can do that.
Oh yeah.
The sooner the solution comes.
Yeah.
And and I'm not going to say that the solutions are always easy.
Oh no.
Or smooth.
Nope.
Or comfortable, because they're not. And we're going to have Goliaths that are going to be tough. We're going to have our Goliaths that are going to be hard to get through, and there are going to be times where we're not going to see the end of the tunnel. you know.
Yeah.
And there's going to be times that, you know, we're going to wonder, okay, there's a light at the tunnel, at the end of the tunnel. Is that really a light or is that another train coming? You know?
Yeah.
Um,
Or, you know, like one of my random quotes that's been in my brain for however long, you know, due to budget cuts, the light at the end of the tunnel's been turned off. And sometimes it feels about like that, but
I love that. I love that. You know, that is good. That is good. But yeah, it's, you know, as long as we remember to turn to God first,
yeah.
you know, instead of the longer we try it on our own,
Yeah.
it's like quicksand,
Yep.
you know? If you step in
I'm fighting.
if you step in quicksand and calm down and reach out for help and let somebody grab you and pull you out, it's a lot easier to get out than if you step in it and try to fight it on your own.
Yeah. And sometimes fun little extras come out of it. I mean, I decided to at least attempt to learn Hungarian after my trip. That was maybe more than I can chew, but it's been an interesting experience attempting to learn. Nem beszélek nagyon magyarul.
Huh?
Vagy kismagyarul beszélek. If any of my Hungarian friends see that, I apologize because that's probably terrible. But I said I don't speak much Hungarian, but a little Hungarian. I think that's what I said.
Well, when we, you know, went to Germany a few years ago, luckily we were with relatives that, well, it's Brian's sister, and, you know,
Oh, yeah.
so obviously she can speak English and all her family can speak English.
Yep.
And so there was always somebody there that could, you know, interpret if
Yeah.
needed, you know.
Yeah.
But most of the people that we, you know, ran into, you know, spoke English. So
Yeah.
it was kind of like,
That's how it was there too. It was just all the teaching they did,
Yeah.
and all the big stuff was in Hungarian.
Right.
So we're all huddled around. We have a couple pictures of all four of us that were there in a touching knees and leaning forward, listening to Ponka try to translate for all of us without making too big of a scene in the back of the room.
so, well, basically to sum it up,
Yeah.
you know, as long as, you know, when we have our problems, you know, we have to keep, if we keep our eye on the problem,
Yeah.
then the world is going to be in control. If we keep our eyes on Christ, then God is in control and we will get through it. And we'll get through
Yeah.
it the way He wants us to get through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, we might be able to get through it on our own without Him, but not necessarily in the manner in which He wants us to.
Yeah.
And there can be repercussions for that.
There can very well be.
So. Well, anyway, my voice is about to give out. So,
Yeah. I haven't really seen any prayer requests
so
come in.
we do need to continue to pray for Nicole and the Lockett family.
I might steal your.
Feel free. You know, there's several people in our church that have, you know, health issues. And just pray for all of the upcoming events.
Yes.
You know, and, you know, this time of year, you know, with Thanksgiving coming up, you know, Christmas coming up, that unity, not only inside our church, but unity within the churches.
Yeah.
You know,
Capital C churches.
the capital C,
I
because
like to use that. Yeah.
you know, the Bible doesn't say anything about, you know, denominations.
Yeah. It doesn't.
You know, it talks about the
Right
church.
and wrong. It talks about right and wrong.
That's right. So you know, we've got to remember that, you know, we may think we are in an excellent church, and I feel we are in an excellent church, but we are not in the only excellent
Right.
church.
Yeah.
You know, so
Can
you
be
know,
easy to forget that.
it can be, and we've got to remember that the small differences don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
God's word matters.
Yeah.
You know,
The example Josh likes to use is state lines versus country lines.
hmm
You know, is it within the tenets of Christianity, or is it outside of that?
right?
If it's outside of it, that's a
hmm
whole other issue. But if it's within, does it really matter?
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of gray areas that people will hold. You know, it has to be
Yeah.
this way, and it's like, well, does it? I mean,
yeah. You know, we had some friends over Saturday for dinner. Some good friends, and um, they prefer a different style of worship music than we do.
Mhm.
And they like hymns,
Yeah,
and I love hymns too.
yeah,
But I also enjoy the contemporary.
yeah.
You know, but
Tell them to come next week.
um,
I mean, it's not hymns, but
but
acoustic.
the thing is, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no.
You know, you can rejoice in whatever style of music you're playing, and it's
Yeah.
the same with the differences. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Does it glorify God? If it does, then
then praise the Lord.
it shouldn't
and
matter.
and if it doesn't, then you know, ignore it until you get to the next song.
There you go.
So,
Oh, I saw it. I think Aaron maybe showed it to me, but you know, it was I don't remember the name of the preacher now. He was talking about worship though, and he was like, you know, he was a worship pastor for a long time, and he's like, you know, he used to have people come up to him, oh, the worship just wasn't very good today. I really didn't appreciate. I didn't like the worship very much. And he's like, did it ever occur to you that we weren't worshiping you, and we weren't worshiping for you? We're as long as we're worshiping this way.
Yeah.
If we're worshiping God in whatever we do, on stage, off stage, you know, in this case, on stage for a worship set, it's like if we're worshiping God, then
we are
surely-
here. We are here to worship God, not to entertain each other.
yeah, that's the ticket.
So anyway, would you be willing to pray us out of here
Yeah,
tonight? I'd appreciate
and-
that because I'd hate to start having coffee
Yeah,
fit in the
no,
middle of a
that's
prayer.
fine. The one I was gonna add here yet too is for our country today.
Oh yes,
I've been avoiding speaking on it, but it's something we should definitely hold in prayer, especially today.
you know, and whatever happens,
Yeah.
you know, whoever, you know, when everything is counted, however, you know, whatever comes,
Yeah.
that's the way it's going to be. You know, and even if it's not the way we want,
Yeah.
we still have to just
Yeah.
abide and go, and you know,
Yeah, I remember seeing one of my guys that I like to watch. Somebody asked him, "Well, if the person you like doesn't get elected, what are you gonna do?" And he's like, "Go back to work tomorrow, continue with my life. What am I gonna do?" Like,
Yeah.
it is what it is, you know. So it didn't go the way you wanted.
it's
It's
always
too bad,
it's always going to
but-
go the way somebody doesn't want it to go.
Yeah. Somebody's gonna be unhappy.
That's right. So
Yeah.
if it goes, you know, not your way and you're unhappy, well, get over it.
Yeah, exactly. Goes for both sides.
That's right. You know, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't
you know?
matter. Oh man, yeah. So if anybody has any other prayer requests, feel free to put them in even after the live stream's done. Put them in there. We have people. I mean, Sandy, I think occasionally goes and checks, and different of our associate pastors.
Yeah,
will
no,
check
there's
on
also, you know, you can go to our website and put in
Yeah.
prayer requests too there.
Yeah.
So that's always an option.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna pray us out of here.
Okay. Thank you.
Dear God, I thank you for this day. I thank you for this actually decent weather we've been having. There's some cold, but it's fall. And so I thank you for the weather that we've been able to have. I just want to pray specifically for the Lockett family. I know Chauncey and Nisa are dealing with a lot with their daughter. I pray specifically for Nicole, especially. Um, just all the surgeries, all the recovery. Sounds like she's slowly starting to get into the recovery stage, but there's so much there. I just pray for a smooth recovery, and I just pray that it would go as fast as you want it to go, and that if it's your will, that she would heal 100% and be able to go back to normal life. Um, I want to pray for any other of the health issues in the church. There's several people that we know that are in the hospital, have been in the hospital for a while. And I want to pray for whatever those situations are, God, wherever they sit, if they're coming out of it, if they just are going into it. You know the situations. You know what the right response is. You know what the right everything is. And so I just pray that your will be done and in all of that stuff. I pray for all the upcoming events, all the different ministries that have weekly events or monthly events. Pray that you would bless those, that you would grow them in the ways that they need to grow, whether that's in people or whether that's in depth, whether that's in size, volume, or if it's just, whittling down and getting that core group closer to you, God. Then I pray for all the ministries and the events that are being held, the upcoming mission trip that they're planning next summer. I pray that all the planning would go well and that whatever planning that they come up with would actually work the way it's intended to work, that your hand would be in all of that. I pray for smooth sailing in that. I want to lift up the church at large, especially in the U.S., but globally as well. Just that no matter what's going on, that we can focus on what is actually important and that we don't let these small issues tear the church apart from the inside out. That's how the devil gets his hands and feet in there, is in the little things that don't actually matter for the most part. And if we can get over those little differences, then it can be that much more glory for you. And I especially want to lift up today the U.S. as a country and just the division, the hatred that gets thrown around this time every 4 years. That it's crazy what happens every year, every 4 years, and doesn't matter which way it goes, you're still ultimately king. And I just want to pray for the safety, the unity of the country as a whole. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, thank you for joining me tonight.
Yeah, it's
And
fun.
You do realize what this means now, don't you?
I'm aware that I will have to find a hole to hide in if I want to avoid coming back on.
Well, you see, because since I do the scheduling, I can always schedule for you to produce and then kind of say, sit.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So
It was fun.
anyway, we encourage you to join us on Sunday. Church is at 10:30. If you're in the area, we'd love to have you live, of course. If you're not able to attend live, we do the live stream, and that's right here on Monaz Media Network. And then we'll be back. Somebody will be back next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Now, next Tuesday, we're going to have to. It'll be a unique live cast or recap because
Sunday's unique.
Sunday is going to be unique. It is more of a full worship Sunday. It's going to be pretty much music throughout the entire service with stuff in between.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be really, really, really good. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I really am.
It'll be different.
It will.
throw people out of their rhythm a little bit.
Yeah, but that's
Put
good
'em-
for us, you know?
Put them in a space where they're not so comfortable
right.
to just sit in the pew
That's right.
and
So anyway,
Yeah.
if you're planning on a normal Sunday next week,
don't.
we hope to see you. Anyway, good night and take care.